So for our next talk, we've got the opportunity to dig even deeper into the topic of APIs as a critical enabler for a new age of IoT. For an audience of API enthusiasts today, our next speaker hardly needs an introduction. We're very privileged to be joined by an IoT product manager from the API product company, Twilio. I'm delighted to introduce Miko Bautista to the stage. Welcome, Miko.
Thank you for the introduction, Claire. Really appreciate it.
It's great to have you here today, and we're really excited to hear your talk.
Yeah, likewise. Very excited to present to you guys as well. So just by another quick way of an introduction, my name is Miko Bautista. I am a product manager at the IoT business unit at Twilio. And today my track is entitled APIs are the last missing piece to enable a new age of IoT. So the IoT explosion, it seemingly continues in 2022. Smart connected devices have been acting as carriages for companies now to deliver more efficient processes, smarter decision-making, and more autonomy to their customers. But if there's anything at all I'd like for you to take away from this talk I'm about to give, it is that now, 2022, is the perfect time for forward-looking companies to incorporate globally scaled IoT into their corporate strategy. And so let's dig into that a little bit deeper, right? Why now? Well, there are two reasons. Because number one, now is the perfect time to build IoT. And number two, now is the perfect time to scale IoT. And so my agenda for this presentation today, it's actually very simple. I'll cover these two bullet points, hoping that the facts I present will convince you to at least investigate how IoT might improve your businesses if you have not done so already. For bullet point number one, I'll take you through a bit of a history lesson. We'll talk about why the recent conclusion of what I'm calling the smartphone war has gifted IoT builders with the perfect tools to rapidly prototype IoT in 2022. For bullet point number two, I'll talk about why the present state of affairs, where software companies are now innovating in highly reliable, maintainable, and available APIs, have been enabling IoT solutions to scale in ways that were previously untenable. So let's dig right into it. Number one, bullet point, why now is the perfect time to build IoT? So the recent conclusion of the smartphone war has left players like Google and Apple at the very top of the totem pole. It's pretty common knowledge by now that most smartphone users own either an iPhone or an Android. But what might not be as obvious, however, is that the remnants of this smartphone war have also gifted entrepreneurs with three building blocks to build and prototype IoT solutions that cater to more and more advanced use cases and unlock them, which were previously unlockable before, let's say. And the first one is the drastic acceleration in microelectronics R&D. So the increased rate at which manufacturers like Apple and Samsung demanded very advanced components. This caused sensor manufacturers to innovate in this space. And as a result, now you have things like accelerometers that can detect motion in 3 dimensions. You have GPS units that can detect a device's location with pinpoint accuracy. And you have this image right here. You have biometric scanners that can recognize and identify unique human fingerprints. All use cases that, before this war happened, you just couldn't build on. So that's number one, the drastic acceleration in microelectronics R&D. The second building block is the ubiquity of software applications. So what do I mean by this? Well, 24 access to software is no longer a thing of the past. So think about it. If you, as a user, are about to unlock a smart scooter sitting on the side of the road, well, you're not going to lug your laptop everywhere you go and log into the mobile or log into the web portal on your laptop to unlock the scooter. No, you're not going to do that. Instead, you're going to either whip out your phone, whip out your smartwatch, and you would unlock the scooter using the mobile app that sits on those devices. This is only a recent phenomenon, which was, again, it just became relevant at the end of the smartphone war, where now everyone owns an iPhone and they're carrying it around with them all the time. So that's number 2, ubiquity of software applications. The last building block is the proliferation of connectivity technologies. So innovations in this connectivity technology space have unlocked a plethora of means by which devices can communicate with one another. And so the great news is that developers now have the luxury of choosing the most ideal connectivity technology that caters to the end customer's needs. The good news is that it's fairly straightforward to choose which of these connectivity technologies is most ideal for your end customer's use case. You can pretty easily think about this in 2 axes. The first is data throughput needs, and the second is range to the base station. Just to call out a couple on this graph right here, Cat-M, for example, would be the perfect choice to send small amounts of data across very short distances. An example I can think of about that would use Cat-M is, say, a smart thermometer. Say it's a smart thermometer and say it detects ambient temperature and it sends this out to the server every couple of minutes, right? Small amounts of data, short distances. Another example I'd like to call out here is one that cell phone users might be quite familiar with, is 4G or 5G cellular, hugely popular for use cases that require much faster cellular data transmission speeds. And this is exactly why on your phone, you can perform activities like high quality video streaming. And so that's number 3, proliferation of connectivity technologies. And that about wraps up for why now is the perfect time to build IoT. And so now I'll move to the second segment of my talk, which is talking about why now is the perfect time to scale IoT. That's that's pretty all great. We can build a device, rapidly prototype, cater to all these advanced use cases, but now what? Well, the problem is that as companies deploy more and more connected devices to solve all these mission critical customer needs around the world, managing these devices at scale becomes a challenge in itself, and it becomes increasingly difficult, actually. I'll give a few examples. As a micro mobility business, how do you ensure that your smart scooters around the world will connect to the most reliable cellular network wherever they go? They can travel from one country to another. It becomes really difficult to handle that. As a home automation company producing smart locks, how do you ensure that none of your smart locks are low on battery? Because they can just run out of battery and thus compromise your homeowners' homes. Really bad if that happens. Another example I can think of is as a smart medical device manufacturer. How do you ensure that the equipment you are producing stores the patient's vitals in a very secure manner and handles this in a very secure manner? And so as you can see with these examples, providing a reliable and consistent experience becomes increasingly difficult for IoT devices deployed across different countries, across different environments, and across different scenarios. So let's dig into that a little more. Why? And so, a lot of challenges with scaling. Why now is the perfect time to scale? Well, APIs to the rescue. IoT management at scale requires APIs. And these APIs are only now becoming the focus of software companies with an API-first methodology. And Twilio is actually a great example of this. I'll delve deeper into how the company is thinking about the space a bit later in the presentation. But in particular, I'd like for us to think about the 3 key pain points in scaling IoT solutions, because we're going to go over those each one right now. First pain point is connectivity management. And I would argue that APIs simplify connectivity management. Picture you are the CEO of a smart scooter business, right? So to deliver the best customer experience, your scooters essentially must connect to the most reliable network wherever they travel to. Operationally, okay, from an execution standpoint, what does this mean for your business? Well, first, your biz dev team will have to form partnerships with each of the major cellular providers across the countries that you operate in. So you'd be able to connect to whichever one has, you would have more options in connecting, because perhaps cellular provider A is better in this region, and cellular provider B has a better signal in this region. So you'd have to form multiple partnerships. And now as your scooters travel from one region to the other, your engineers, your developers will have to program network switching logic in the devices themselves to be able to detect whether there is a stronger signal and connect to that stronger signal. So there's additional overhead there. Your financial analysts will then, after you consume cellular data from all these providers that you have formed partnerships with, they will receive bills from all of these providers, and they will have to sort through them. There is no one structure to this. And again, this adds a lot of overhead to your operations and to your company. The worst part is that this problem will only compound if you would like to expand into one country tomorrow, maybe 5 countries, maybe 10 countries. You would have to form so many partnerships. There would be so much overhead in your operations that the idea of global scale quickly becomes a stretch. But like I said today, companies called cloud native providers are building solutions that take care of these logistical headaches for you. So for example, Twilio IoT's SuperSIM product handles partnerships with cellular network providers around the globe. We handle programming intelligent network switching logic, and we handle architecting easy to understand cost infrastructure. All these features are bundled into one package. So all your company would have to do is to integrate with SuperSIM APIs, and you would just get one bill from Twilio. All your engineers would have to do is write a few lines of code. And so with this approach, scaling to another 5, 10, 50 countries requires very minimal effort from a connectivity management standpoint. So that is the first reason why now is the perfect time to scale IoT. The second reason is because it is very difficult to trigger communications without APIs. So I'm arguing here that APIs immensely help the task of triggering communications internally and externally. Let's take a look at the leftmost example on this graphic I have here. Say you are a manufacturer of EV chargers. And so among the thousands of devices you've deployed around the world, one of your EV chargers, let's say, has notified your system that it is overheating in the field. Big problem. How do you follow up? Well, wouldn't it be great if there was just some sort of automation built into your machine to trigger relevant communications to important stakeholders? So let's take this example. Let's say the EV charger is overheating in the field. Well, wouldn't it be really good if it could send out an SMS message to drivers around the area so they would know that, hey, this EV charger is overheating. I don't want to drive there. It's not going to fill up my battery. Wouldn't it be great if it could send out an email to your customer support team so that they are informed on what happened, just in case they receive a customer complaint? Wouldn't it be great if the EV charger could send out a phone call, maybe, to the mechanic in charge, who would then need to go in and repair the EV charger? This is just one example. EV chargers overheating. It definitely extends to other scenarios. So let's take the middle of this graphic and the right side of this graphic as additional examples. In the middle here, we have a smart scooter. It's run out of battery. And on the right, we have a security camera that has identified suspicious activity. For both of these scenarios, you would like to definitely communicate internally, maybe to the customer currently riding the EV charger, or externally, maybe to the police force, to alert them of this suspicious activity. These are, I would argue, definite must-haves for such products to be successfully adapted by the market and by the customers. Once again, I'll make a pitch for Twilio here, because in addition to building APIs that simplify connectivity management, the company also moves up the stack, actually. And we build customers' APIs that enable devices to communicate with the rest of the world by tapping into the power of some of our offerings, Twilio programmable messaging, programmable email, and programmable voice. Developers are able to automate the process of getting their devices to communicate all these different mission-critical bits of information to the appropriate stakeholder at the exact time that this information is needed. So that's bullet point number 2. APIs help trigger communications internally and externally. Finally, APIs reduce risk with device security. And I'll paint another picture here. I'll use another scenario. So let's imagine you are a smart scooter manufacturer. You're watching your data usage costs as the months go by. But wait, you notice a really crazy uptick one month. Well, how did that happen? Let's say, little did you know that out of the thousands of machines you have deployed around the world, there was a single malicious user who took a SIM card from one of the smart scooters, stripped it out, put it into their tablet, and is now streaming Netflix on their tablet. That would definitely cause a spike in your data usage costs. Bad news is that this user would be very, very difficult to pinpoint manually. It would certainly be more tedious to do so manually, certainly more time consuming as well to do so manually than if you were to integrate with APIs. All these efficiencies and processes having to do things manually, these lead to a direct increase in your business costs. At the end of the day, you still pay your connectivity provider for all the data that your SIMs are consuming. You still pay for your engineers' time in debugging these problems on the field to identify exactly what went on. But what's more is that this, again, one example I'm giving of someone stripping a SIM card and attaching it to another device, it's just one of many, many other business events. What if the SIM appeared in another unexpected country? What if the customer terminates the contract? What if the customer sends in a defective device report? All these different types of business events must lead and will require a corresponding desired action. And in the middle here, I have some of these examples of such actions. They could be, pulling usage data. It could be switching the active network that the device is connected to. It could be deactivating the SIM so it's no longer usable. It could be sending the device a command. But the point is, the moment security concerns are identified for any of these given business events, an automated follow-up action must be triggered. This communication needs to be streamlined. And this streamlined form of communication between your server and your device is only possible via APIs. And so that's number 3. APIs reduce risk with device security. So in conclusion, I'm gonna go back and wrap this up and refer to the beginning of my speech, right? The point I was trying to make all this time is that today, forward-looking companies are presented with the perfect opportunity to incorporate IoT into their global product strategy. Such investments can enhance existing solutions to known problems or unlock new solutions to problems that couldn't have been addressed before. We saw this from the remnants of the smartphone war, which has just made this possible in recent years. And so we argued that, it's great, we can build an IoT device now, but there are countless nuances to successfully scaling an IoT product. And any of these nuances can easily detract the company from focusing on its core competency. The good news is that there is an ecosystem of APIs out there that others have built. And so by leveraging this ecosystem, companies are now able to stay focused on solving the customer needs that they are most familiar with, while simultaneously growing in a scalable and sustainable manner. So I know I talked a lot about Twilio, pitched our SuperSIM product during this talk. If anyone is interested in checking out our APIs and documentation, feel free to navigate to the URL over there. And if anyone is interested in trying out the product themselves, definitely grab a free one at this URL. But for any other follow-up questions, or if you just want to chat, I'd be more than happy to connect. Please don't hesitate to shoot me an email, and we can go from there. Thank you very much for your time and attention today.
Miko, thank you so much on behalf of the Apidays team attendance here today. Really fantastic to see, the API product management world come to life. Your deep insights into the problems that you're seeking to solve, how you're framing that and making life so much simpler and easier. I was really drawn to particularly some of the global scale opportunities that you talked about, the way that you're solving problems for kind of almost like the next big generation of IoT opportunities as it kind of does more than grow up as a mechanism for making a difference for people. We'd love to be able to keep the conversation going, but we're actually out of time, I'm afraid. So thank you for leaving your email details. I'm sure that people can contact you directly and presumably on LinkedIn. If
No
they
problem
need.
at all. It was such a pleasure to speak today. And again, please feel free to follow up via email.
It was a delight to have you. Thank you, Miko.
Thank you, Claire.